All right, today I want to welcome Ben Brown. He is a former Marine and current sales coach, and you know I love Marines. Ben started sales coaching when he was at BNI. He realized that many small businesses don't use a sales process. Boy, isn't that true? And in fact, many businesses don't think sales training is important until it starts to affect their revenue. And sadly, I think a lot of people are running into that. So stay tuned. But he started working with business owners, and that resulted in what he calls the rapid success sales process. It is a proven 10-step process that gets more clients and more sales. And welcome, Ben.
Good morning to you. How's everything, Mr. Andrews?
It's going well, and I gotta say, Semper Fi. It's good to have a former Marine on the show.
Thank you. It's always good to be out there and talking to. I met one of my former Marines this weekend. We were hanging out and doing an event this weekend, and we started working together. And the guy said, "You must be military." And I go, "Yeah, I'm military, Marine." He goes, "Semper Fi." That's why we get along. And we've been working together for 20 minutes before we realized we were brothers, because all Marines are brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What led you to get in the Marine Corps, and how long were you in?
I grew up in a small town, didn't have a lot of options getting out. So I had a tennis scholarship and wasn't really feeling college, looking for a different avenue. My father raised me properly. I say my father raised me, the Marines made me a man. Plus the fact it was only 4 hours away. Your options for bases, you'll be at California or Lejeune, and that was 4 hours from my house. So I didn't know of the grueling part, like how difficult it would be. But I was thinking about the weekends I would have coming home, getting my mom's food, which I did. And so I went through all of that just so I can come home and get something to eat every once in a while. It's, $13 in gas to get from Lejeune to my house. And I was home and mom would cook all weekend and I would go back, but I was barely even home and we were gone a lot. So that's why I picked a few to pro.
Yeah, and what'd you do in the Marines?
I was artillery.
Okay,
Yes.
lobbing
Yeah.
the shells in.
Yeah. Gun rock.
Excellent. Yeah, and so I was at Cherry Point, just about 45 minutes from Lejeune,
Mhm.
and it's I love the Marine Corps. I credit the Marine Corps for giving me the mindset to go through the recovery I've had to go through for the last couple of years, learning how to walk and rebuild, and it's still hard, but no, Semper Fi.
Yes. Semper Fi.
So you were telling me some story about something significant that happened 10 years ago.
Mhm.
What happened?
So, when you look at your life, I was adopted, and I assume I was adopted 20 days after based on my birth certificate. And so it's just me and my sister, but I have like 80 cousins, and we're the only two that's adopted out of the 80 on both sides of the family. And I went to my sister and I asked her, I said, "Where's my baby pictures?" Because I assumed they adopted me like 6 days after. And my sister, who's 7 years older than I am, said, "You don't have any baby pictures because we didn't get you till you were 3." And I never asked. And I'm like, "No, you got me 6 days after." And this, and she says, "No, I was there. We got you at 3 years old. Go ask your dad." So my dad is still around. He's 95, just celebrated 28th, he'd be 95. So I go to my dad, the silent generation, and he goes, "Yeah, go get your paperwork." I'm like, "What paperwork?" So we go in the old Foot Locker, and I realized I was in foster care for 3 years.
Wow.
So I'm like, huh, my mom passed the year before. So I took the paperwork and went to a Georgia adoption agency, paid the $300. Normally, it would take 6 months to find a parent or anything, and you have three options.
Hey,
But the
let
child,
me pause real quick just to make sure we're following tracks. You said your mom had passed 3 years earlier. That was the mom that adopted you.
the mom that, yeah, my mother that raised me, and so I
Yep.
was looking for my birth mother.
Yep. Okay.
And so you pay the child can find the parent can never find the child. So long story short, they contacted her. She never changed her phone number in Greenville, 3 hours away. And when they contacted her, they said, we're contacting, did you ever live in Atlanta, Georgia? She said, yes. And I had a child, and he was born August 2nd, 1970. And they go, I guess you know why we're contacting you. She said, yes, my child, he's looking for me. And they go, yes. And she said, I've been waiting for this call for 42 years.
Mm.
And so 3 weeks later, I opened the door at her museum. She's a historian and a genealogist. And I got to see my birth mother for the first time. And we look absolutely alike. And our families had intermingled over the years because we're 3 hours away and never been able to connect that. My cousin was on a board, NAACP board with her 20 years ago for 5 years, sitting beside her, coming to the family reunion, hanging with me, had no idea that that was my mother.
So
And so,
you'd actually seen her. You'd actually seen her before you realized she was your mother.
no, my cousin
Your
was
cousin had seen her.
hanging with her. He lived in the town and he was on the board with her. So he's hanging with her. And then we had family reunions every year. And so he would come to the family reunion, and he lived in Greenville
Yeah.
and had no idea. So when I called him after we found out, I said, Tyrone, you know I'm adopted. He goes, yeah. I said, I've been looking for my birth mother in Greenville. Who do you think I should talk to? She's very influential. He goes, I know exactly who you need to talk to, Ruth Ann Butler. I used to be on the board. He's just giving her all these accolades. Ruth Ann Butler's a historian. She could find your mother. And I go, 5 minutes later, I go, Tyrone. I said, I found my birth mother. Guess who she is? He says, no, Ruth Ann Butler. The phone dropped. He didn't come back to the phone for 10 minutes.
Wow. What an amazing story. And if it's okay, I'd like to probe in on a couple things on that. So I actually tomorrow I have some longtime mentors coming to visit. He's a retired Marine Corps major. He was a Mustang, which for those that don't know, he was enlisted and then became an officer.
Warrant officer or just a regular officer?
No, he was a major. He
cool.
retired as a major. And they had an adopted daughter named Kristen, who was Japanese, and Kristen was born in Nagasaki. And they talked about how, for Kristen, it was really easy. She could look at them and, they're Scottish white folks and she's Japanese. And, there's no secret that she was adopted, but she just had this desire to meet her mom. She wanted to know where she came from. And so what would that feel like for you?
I'd say this, every child that's adopted wants to know why.
Yeah.
My sister never went on that endeavor. I know people in the area who's went out and found their parents, but you want to know why. What made that person give you up? That's a big decision. My mother gave me up because my grandparents were preachers and very pronounced in the area. And back in the 70s, an unwedded woman was looked upon downside. So my grandmother, maternal grandmother, told my mother, birth mother, you can come back to Greenville, but the child can't.
Wow.
So that's why she had me, and my uncle helped her, had me in Atlanta, Georgia, drove me to Greenville and gave me up. And the judge told her, you do realize you have just given up all your rights to this child. And she regretted that for 42 years. So when we found each other, her heart reverberated so much. There's number of stories. She had a dog she had 2 years before I found her. She didn't name me. I was named by the system. So when I asked my dad and he showed my paperwork, my foster paperwork said baby Benjamin. So not only I found out that I was adopted, not at 6 days, but 3 years, 3 years old, I found out my parents didn't name me. And then the first question I asked my mother, did you name me? She said, I couldn't. So now I found out at 42 years old, I don't know who named, I got named by the system. So I was baby Butler, then Benjamin Butler, then Butler fell off, and my name is Benjamin Brown, no middle name. So I grew up kind of weird, no middle name. Everybody had middle names. And I was like, why I don't have no middle name? So when I opened the paperwork and said baby Benjamin, I told my father, I'm like, you didn't even name me? He was like, no. I'm like, don't you think that was kind of important? So these things just get crazy. So she had a dog 2 years before I found her. The dog took care of her and protected her. And she never took in a dog ever. She lived alone. And the dog was, would be around. It was the best dog ever she had. And 2 weeks before I found her, she gave the dog up because she couldn't take care of it. Um, and guess what the dog name was?
What?
Ben.
Ah,
And the day after I came and seen her that weekend on Monday, the owner who had the dog, I came and seen her fondly in Greenville that weekend and met my family. That Monday, the dog crawled up in the owner's lap and died. So that dog motivated her, kept her will going till I can come into her life. And she named the dog Ben. She had no idea of my name.
that is so bizarre. So if there was a lesson, if you had a lesson for other adopted kids
Mhm.
and a message that you could share with them, what would that message be?
If you're curious about finding out, find out before it's too late. You never know. It might be good. Each state is different. I talk to my birth mother 3 times a week. It's a great relationship. And the family that I got to meet besides that is phenomenal. Your story might not end up like that, but that is your story. And every adopted child at some point in their life are curious about what life they would have led if they would have stayed with their mother. Might have been bad, drug abuse, a lot of things that go on in people's lives, the reason they give up their children. But there's always that question. And if that question gets big enough, I tell people to take that leap and find out. You'll be a better person for it. Even if you turn out and find out that the parents wasn't what you thought it was, but it will help that question in your mind because everybody has it.
Now, I think one of the questions that somebody might have that's in the same shoes as you, you mentioned that you talk to your mom 3 times a week.
Mhm.
How does that make your mom that raised you, of course, passed away, but how does that make your dad feel?
Oh, Dad wanted to go up there when I met her, and I'm like, I got to go myself. So they talk quite often. It has been an evolution of family. She's come to our house many times. She comes to our events. My dad has went up there and a number of times. So it is a commingling of the families. So now she had 10 siblings. So my ex-wife used to say, how many family members is you gonna have? You got 84 cousins. Now you got a birth mother with 10 more aunts and uncles. Like, so one of the weirdest things is that I was a genealogist, and I took my daddy's family back to Ghana, my mother's family back to the 1800s before I even met my mother, and realized that gene carried over because she's a genealogist and a historian. So I had that in me, like she had, and we have a lot in common. So my daughter looks exactly like her. If you see a picture, real quick, picture of my daughter and my mother's mother, and I have a picture on Facebook of my grandmother, which is 4 generations, with a bow. And I put a bow on my daughter, and you put them side by side, and I ask people, who do you think that is? Well, that's your daughter, and that must be your mother. They look exactly alike. I go, no, that's her great grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah,
What an amazingly powerful story. I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah,
Let's pivot a little bit.
okay.
So, and we want to talk a lot about, we want to talk about leadership, and you've had so many interesting life experiences. I know you have a leadership story to share.
Mhm.
So, one, real quick, you're you're helping small businesses put
Mhm.
sales processes into place. And
Right.
and what do you, I mean, what would you say are the top problems you see that they have?
They don't have one. Some businesses have, you focus on marketing, you focus on accounting, these major things that keep the company going, but there's no sales process. So a lot of companies are winging it. It's hard to reproduce. And a lot of companies out there think they're doing well because they have what's called incoming leads. If you ever been in business long enough, sometime that gets cut off. Sometime competition comes in and you have to get more aggressive. That's when my phone rang, or they realize there's a problem. So if there's no problem, people don't know what sales is. It's like, oh, I got these leads coming in. You're an order taker. It's the difference between that. Now with the email campaigns and email drops, and you have a way to influx people to come in into your business, but there's no process going out. Very few people can focus on outbound sales. If you could do that, and you can kill the market, because a lot of people are just lazy. they don't
Yeah.
want they don't want to go out and take the rejection. And most people don't do sales because of that. And it has to do with confidence. So I build people confidence.
Now, one of the challenges when you go into someone else's company,
Hmm.
you're the outsider coming in saying, "Hey, this is what you should do."
Hmm.
Do you run into pushback from that? How do you manage that?
I'm a problem solver. Every entrepreneur is a problem solver. So I look for problems. So in sales, there's different things that you can do to help your sales. Your CRM, your technological, what's your marketing bringing in? Um, your sales pitch, how do you talk? What is your closing rate? All these things, there's a number of things in sales that goes into the part. I tell people sales is simple, but it's not easy. So you have to understand all these different things. So I can go into, for example, a company that has a database they haven't exploited. I can go into that database, set up a calls for the previous customers, because the best customer to sell is the one you already sold. And so referrals can come from that. So you could do a referral program. I've done that with a business that generated 40% more that year because they never paid attention to their previous customer. They're just going through new customers all the time. They go back through, we set up a call, go back through the previous, who do you know that we possibly can help? You're generating more leads for free. And the people are connecting you with people that they know, like, and trust, which is like networking. And you don't have to market as much. And they're in the same demographic. Most people are in the same demographic, but they never focused on that. That's just one simple way of generating more income through sales.
Well, and that alone, that's a huge takeaway.
Hmm.
Let's talk about a little bit leadership. So obviously, you're in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps teaches a lot of leadership. What what did you learn about leadership in the Marine Corps,
Oh.
and what have you learned since you've been coaching people in sales?
I took a lot from the Marine Corps. I was a sergeant, and I was one of the ones who were kind of like doing that transition after we came back from the Gulf. Was in charge of a platoon of about 80 guys at one time. So responsibility, as far as those guys being able to be prepared, dress well, physically fit, knowing what they need to do, get in the positions that they want. Marines were action orientated. We had give us a couple of fundamentals, and we'll just go from there. And that's our deal. In most companies, it's the same thing. What are the action items that they're carrying? Or what are the leadership that they're carrying? Do you have people that believe in your leadership? Is the key. You can have it, but do they believe in it? Do they follow it? It's like a football team. After the coach, they say, loses the locker room, it's only a matter of time before they have to let him go, even though he's a good coach, because you have to have people that follow you in that. So leadership, I found that most people don't understand that, because there's a lot of individuals nowadays, and to be a leader, you have to give a lot of yourself and expect a lot of others. So it's a character type deal. Do you have the character to be a leader? And you have to be understand some people are not. You're born leaders and you can make leaders. But yeah, are you a leader or not? In some ways, what I do is I analyze that to figure out if you're in the right position to do that. If not, you waste a lot of people's time, because that's all we have is time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And time's the one thing you can't buy more of.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, can you think of a time in your life where you felt like your leadership was put to the test? You were faced with a tough decision. You weren't sure of the outcome of it, but you went ahead and made that decision. What was it and how did it play out?
I think my decision to leave my home after a marriage that I couldn't save. Um,
Mm,
you try to do the best you can, You think you're doing the best you can. And sometimes it just doesn't go your way. There's nothing you can do about it. And you have to make those decisions for you and for your family. What makes it better? That was a very hard decision because I never thought you would make that type of decision. It's basically like taking somebody off life support, right? And so to make that decision, but I had put things in place that secured that I did everything that I could before I made that decision. But that was not being able to sleep in the same house as your children every day. That's hard.
Yeah.
But being able to do that and have them adapt to that and give them everything that you can when you can give it to them is the best that you can do. And I'm doing the best job that I can with that. I'm not going anywhere. They see that they're with me 50% of the time now. And the birth mother, I mean, their mother is good, and we have a good relationship. But that was very tough because one thing you want to protect in this life is your children. And if you think that you can't sleep with them every night, you feel that like the Marine type deal, right? Protection. It's the
Yeah.
main thing guys provide. And not being able to be there is something that I had to, it took a lot to get over that. To just be able to put that down your throat is very hard. But I made the decision, better for it, and you just adapt and overcome, right? So you just move forward with those decisions. It's like letting somebody go that you like. You have to let them go, and most people don't. And you bring down 6 months later, you have to let them go, right? So I tell most of the people when I work with them in businesses, we work in sales teams. When I get there, I'm like, there's some people that's not going to be here soon because it's nothing personal. It's business. So it's the same thing I had to go through with my kids. It was personal, but it just had to be done. And I had to look at it like that and move forward. So making hard decisions is one of the number one traits as far as being a leader. And some people just can't make it.
Well, yeah, that is true. Well, Ben, this has been a delightful conversation. Appreciate you coming on Leaders and Legacies. Now, I understand you have a book called The Art of Closing the Sale. And where can people find that, and where can people find you?
You can find it on Amazon. It's Master the Art of Closing the Sale by Benjamin Brown. The main thing is on my website is 360 Sales Consulting. But if they want to reach out and connect with me on a personal deal, I do have a 15-minute session for people that's in that type of situation where they're trying to figure out things. It doesn't take that long to figure out if I can help. And it's meetwithbenjamin.com. And I branded that for people to go in and schedule a session because time is so important, right? And people try to set up these sessions. So you have to have ways for people to reach out to you that's convenient based upon that. So meet with Benjamin. They can schedule a call session, figure out what they're doing wrong about their sales. Most of the people I work with generate 30, 40% easily in their business by finding the holes of what the stuff they're not doing right now, besides the point of what they need to be doing, which is key.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you for being on Leaders and Legacies.
Thank you.